So you'll have noticed in my other episodes, I talk about Uran, my brother. So Uran was the first and greatest of the great scientists. But he didn't want the technology that he created to go to people without an understanding of it. He believed that without education, technology would be the equivalent of magic. And if anything ever happened to the civilization, it would just collapse like a pack of cards without that education in place. So the first of the great universities was created, and it was located in the center of Tantal. And it covered all the subject matters, but it became clear in a very short time to Uran that he really needed to break it up into institutions. And he decided that 12 institutions would cover his purposes. Uran asked his best students to help him to create the 12 separate universities. As each one was being constructed, the institution was then separated from the great center of learning in Tantal. Some were built in a more appropriate location around the world, and others were kept within Tantal, but in a separate building. And the ones that were outside of Tantal, there was generally a good reason for the location that they were put in. The people he asked to help him set up those institutions then became the leaders of their respective institutions. Some of the institutions were controlled by just one person, while others were led by maybe up to 4 people. But they were all people that Uran trusted. So the various institutions were, number 1, the Great Institute. It was the original institute, and it ended up being for numbers, i.e. maths, for measurement and for time. It was the first university that a student would attend. So the first 10 years of a student's education was always at the Great Institute. There were only 2 other universities that were located in Tantal, and they were the University of Medical Studies and the University of Arts and Enjoyment. So the rest of them were all scattered around the world in various places. So the first one outside of Tantal was the University of Theoretical Energy. So this was all about the theory around the options for generation of energy. So in our terms, it covered things like physics, electricity, light, sound, vibration, gravity, magnetism, repellation. I don't know if that's a real word, but it was about like the way magnets can repel each other. Anyway, the next institute, the Application of Energy Institute. So that was quite closely related to the theoretical energy, but it was the practical application of use and the technology associated with it. Number 4 was the University of Alchemy and Philosophy. So it's not quite chemistry, but I think I'll get into that in a bit more detail in another. It's a bit wider than chemistry, but it's I think the old-fashioned word is probably the best for it. The number 5, the Building and Mining Institute. Number 6, the Institute of Water Studies. Then, of course, number 7, Nutrition and Agriculture. Number 8, I've already mentioned, Medical Studies. And I've mentioned number 9, the Arts and Enjoyment Institute. Number 10, Primitives and Animal Studies. Number 11, Earth Studies. So that's things like weather, tide, wind, tectonics, mapping, all the earth sciences. And the last one, of course, was the University of Celestial Movement.